Welcome to TORAH Talk. I am your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA. With that crazy rabbi. Why is it that I always have to say that when I'm with you? Rabbi Chaim Coffman with controversial issues. Tonight's episode number 9 is going to be Lashon Hara in social media. So this is going to be a little spicy. So get you a glass of milk, because I hear milk and bread are the only two options you got. As for me, since it's my birthday, you guys just going to have to be acceptable and a little pot. I'm having myself a little dessert. So, Rabbi, I already said the blessing for us, so.
So you're good.
Got to relax, man. This is like, this day only happens once a year. You know what I'm saying? So, very good. Welcome to the show, everybody. Glad you're able to tune in. And the phone lines are open as of 3, 2, 1 now. Phone lines are open, but I'm thinking if I turn this up, the music will have stopped. It has. Good. Okay, so the phone lines are open, and you can call in. The number will be on your screen in just a second, like they are right now. There you go. And so tonight's topic, here's the thing. If you want to call in, we would love for you to call in, but you definitely need to keep it based on the topic of tonight, because we have a lot to go over. And the more questions that we can ask, Rabbi, on this topic, the better this whole topic will actually be, the better the outcome will be. So I really hope that that you guys will, all the viewers out there, will be willing to check this out and give us a call. So yeah, Lashon Hara and social media, and for those of you who never heard that term before, and why it's so controversial, it's basically gossip, backbiting, evil speech, talking about people, whether it's true or not, doesn't matter. So we're going to get into that tonight with the expertise of our sweet rabbi and our crazy rabbi, Mr. C. So how do you want to start this thing off? I think I should get my barbecue gloves on, right? So I don't burn my hands.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic. I think, if you look back in history, that as the Talmud says, the Second Temple was destroyed because people spoke badly against others. There was sinas chinam, there was unlawful hatred, right, between one person and another, which begs the question: is hatred ever, permissible, in general?
Okay.
But speaking badly, against someone else, it's interesting. If a person transgresses and they do something wrong, let's say,
hey, Rabbi,
they steal from...
Rabbi, yeah. let's do this. I need you to really pay attention to what you're saying whenever the phone rings, because I'm going to interrupt you when they call. Okay. And so you can take a minute or so to get yourself to a point where you can remember where you were. That way we can go and take their calls to free the phone lines open, because I think the more phone calls we can get tonight, I think it'll make for a better episode. Does that sound okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and take this call now, and then and we'll kind of rewind a little bit back on what you were talking about to kind of get us back in. Okay, it's kind of like when I watch TV with the kiddos, or if I'm watching news with the wife or whatever. As soon as I hear their footsteps coming in, all of a sudden I'm not paying attention because I know they're going to say something. So I have to pause the TV and we talk and we do our thing, but then I have to rewind it like 30 seconds so I can kind of regain the context of what I just got through saying. So, all right. So, caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name. Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Cindy.
Hi, Cindy.
I'm calling from Beechwood, Ohio. How are you?
I am good. Welcome to...
Coffman is not surprised.
Welcome to Texas and Israel.
Welcome to Texas and Israel. Thank you very much.
Yes.
My question is, I heard Rabbi Coffman opine on the subject before, and I hate to interrupt him because I know he's got a lot to say. But one of the things that I want to ask is, I guess, the $64,000 question, and that is, most of the time it's best to just shut your mouth and move on, right? Yeah. Most of the time.
Right.
But when are those very, very, very few and exceptional times when one should say something? And that's my question.
And my answer, so Rabbi can correct me and show me how much I don't know, is whenever somebody's in danger. If something happens to where there's someone who could be injured or harmed in some way because you chose not to say something, in my understanding, that would be kind of when you would be required to actually say something. But even then, you're walking on eggshells. You have to be very careful how you do it so that you don't do it out of self-gratification in some way. So, yes, I want to hear what Rabbi's got to say, too. Cindy, that is a fantastic question. Thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, Rabbi. Take it away. You may not get to talk about anything you want to tonight. We may have to have like part 2 and part 3 of this whole same topic, and I'm okay with that if you are. So let's go with it.
Gate 19, Gate 20, Gate 21. Anyway, yeah. Anyone knows that? Call in. Okay.
Oh man.
Anyway, yeah. So people think that when giving over information, let's say someone is getting married or wants to get married, and giving over information about a person's child or about somebody, there's always the question, someone does something wrong, something egregious. Am I allowed to say anything? Am I allowed to turn them over, let's say, to the police or something like that, which, is an important thing, as well. So, the basic answer is going to be that, as you said, if, someone's life's in danger, or potentially, someone's life is in danger, it doesn't necessarily mean physically. It could also mean if somebody, if a person knows somebody's a thief, for example, and they find out somebody may actually do business with them, you can't say, well, I can't say anything because it's Lashon Hara. What can I do? The Torah forbids me. But that person causes someone, is causing someone damage, or, potentially causing someone damage. Now, giving over information, person has to be careful. There are certain criteria, that has to be met, in order to do it. One thing is you cannot exaggerate. You have to know it firsthand as well. And if it's not firsthand, right, so a person can take that in to say that,
that'd be gossip, right.
I don't know it firsthand, but even if I don't know it firsthand, I can't accept it 100%, but I can certainly guard myself against it. Right? In other words, that, accepting Lashon Hara is also forbidden, right? But, if someone is a menace, and that's pretty clear, so then, yeah, it's certainly permissible, it's certainly permissible to say something. Now, where this question goes, is especially what, we're going to get into, is people say all kinds of stupid things and maybe obnoxious things against the Torah on social media. So people think I have an absolute mitzvah from the Torah, to back God. I have to go out and I have to say things, and person's a heretic, I have to knock him out. And my answer always is that, God can defend himself. He doesn't necessarily need us, to defend him. At the same time, a person certainly has to be careful, what they say. But to answer the question specifically, if it's a dangerous situation, whether it's physical, whether it's money-wise, somebody has to be warned. They definitely have to be warned about somebody, about somebody else. And let's say, again, it doesn't matter really what it is. If it's if it's a dangerous situation, there's no mitzvah to be quiet. Certainly in that sense, the person saw a fire. There's a famous parable. Someone saw a fire, and the water in the city was bad, so they had to boil the water, before they could drink it. So, houses were burning down, and people were sitting there burning their, they're what do you call it? They're boiling their water. So someone comes down and says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, we can't drink the water till it's boiled." They said, "No, when there's a fire, you just put anything on it to stop it." Right? So it's a similar idea. If, someone is someone's a menace, and, it's a dangerous situation, you don't have to worry about boiling water.
Right.
It's a dangerous thing. Person,
I see what you mean. Right.
Again, person could lose his portion in the world to come, by turning over somebody, to the authorities. But that has to be done definitely with rabbinic supervision. But at the same time, you have to, if it's a dangerous situation, you don't sit back. The problem is people think, mistakenly, that certainly within social media, there are these times where, I definitely have to say something, and probably the majority of the time it's better to keep quiet.
So go a little bit more into the part about hearing Lashon Hara.
So if someone is in the presence of someone else, I can't imagine this ever happening. But if it would happen, where someone is speaking, against somebody else, in the laws of Lashon Hara, you kill 3 people. The person who speaks, it's forbidden. The person who listens, it's forbidden. And there's damage done by the person, who's being spoken about. So if a person in the presence of others speaking against somebody else, again, as you mentioned correctly, if it's something that's true, even if everybody knows it, this is why, this is a big misnomer and people, don't understand this, that even if it's known, even if it's proven, I started on the 11 o'clock news, and everybody in the world, I don't know if there is 11 o'clock news anymore, but everybody in the world, knows about it. It's on the internet. So you're still not allowed to repeat it. And not only that, but even if someone's speaking, you can't have in your mind that you accept it 100%. You can be cautious, but you can't accept it 100% for that reason.
Right, gotcha. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and take this caller. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name. Where are you calling from?
It's Yaakov from New York.
Yaakov, how are you?
Cool. Good. I just called in. I just noticed I got the email that your show is on. I'm sorry to interrupt your show.
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. Okay, let me just give you right up front. If you're just now tuning in,
Rabbi Singer, and I go to Chabad, and
good.
I'm involved in a lot of things. But one quick thing on the stand-in, a side note. I mentioned this once before, and I got cut off. The NIV Bible made attempts. Actually, it did show hundreds and hundreds of places that the Roman Church and other people changed.
Hey, Yaakov, let me interrupt you real quick, if you don't mind. We've got to keep tonight's questions based on tonight's topic. So if your question isn't about that, why don't you send me an email, and I'll add that to the list, or call in on one of the other shows, if that's okay.
Oh, I wasn't listening to the show. I just called you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. It's always good to hear your voice, man. So why don't you send me an email, TORAHTalkQuestions@gmail.com. Send me that for sure,
cool.
and then also try to call in. It's better if you call in than it is to send me text, because a lot of the I will say 95% of all the text type questions that come in never make it because we have too many calls. So
right, the first time I tried to call in for this subject, I got cut off.
Oh, did you really?
That was the problem. Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so if someone hears somebody, speaking against someone else, they're not allowed to accept it, 100%. If it's something that potentially could damage them, in the future or whatever, they're allowed to guard themselves. But believing it, they're not allowed to. And
are they expected to say, "Hey, wait a minute, we can't talk about that"?
That's one thing you should try and do, is try and change the subject. I'm talking about a case where, should have made that clear, where you're not able to change the subject.
Okay.
In other words, you're at work, you're at the water cooler, or whatever it is, and people are speaking against other people. I mean, like I said, I can't imagine that ever happening, but if it would happen, then,
you're kidding, right? That was a joke.
then that is, the best thing is trying to steer the conversation away. If you can't steer the conversation away, then sort of like let it go in one ear and out the other. If you can't do that, and it still makes a tremendous impression, then, you got to do your best not to believe it. In the essence, it's interesting what I was going to say at the beginning was that, the essence of Lashon Hara is not like any other transgression, in the sense that, if a person does something else, they steal from someone else, they have something in their hand. You beat up Granny to, steal her pocketbook while she's crossing the street, or, whatever the case is, you have something in your hand. When you speak against someone else, you don't have anything in your hand. What are you doing? You're speaking against someone else in order to make yourself look good. So you say, well, isn't that something tangible?
Mm-hmm,
right. It's not.
Right.
It's not having something, in your hand. What it does is you're knocking somebody down to make yourself look better. So, even if a person wanted to speak against someone else, when all the conditions are met, it can only be in a case where you're trying to give over something, and give over information, and there's a purpose. It's what we call a toel. There's a purpose for it.
Okay, gotcha. All right, let's take this call. Thank you for calling in. Tell us your name. Where are you calling from? in a few seconds. Caller, can you hear us? If they're watching the program, oh, I think they might have hung up. I guess they did. It might have been a wrong number. Every once in a while, somebody will call and say, I'm calling about the free life insurance. And I was like, well, there was...
They're giving away free pizza or something. I hear.
I guess if they were calling for free life insurance, that really would have applied to our show, though.
Not
free...
when I shut down your system.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Okay, cool. All right, so again, just to confirm, to lock that in, and you can't really lock it in. There's way too many angles to approach it from, but the general idea, number one, if you really feel compelled to tell somebody something about someone else, you can't just tell them anything. You can't just tell them any way with any tone that you want, because some people will use that as an opportunity. Well, that will cause danger. So by gosh, now I'm really going to trash that person. But see, you can't do that either, right? You got to be very, very delicate on how you deliver this stuff.
And people make the mistake to say, no, this is a serious situation. I have to say something. I have to do something.
Right.
And most of the time, that is not the case.
I totally agree. Yeah, I've actually seen situations like that too.
If I had a dozen of things I've seen that said, yeah, something should be said, then you say, what's the point?
Yeah.
You got to be careful how you say it, how it gets magnified, and you got to think once, twice, 3 times, 5 times, 100 times.
Right.
Before you comment, but most people, hit the enter button and they don't care. So.
Right. And so for the person on the other end, if it's one person or if it's 2 people or 5 people, like the water cooler comment was very interesting, because I'll tell you what, one job I had in Oklahoma years ago, that was what fueled the company. If you wasn't gossiping about somebody, man, it's like, you didn't have any friends or anything. And so, if you're walking up to the time clock, fixing to punch out, and you hear, 2 or 3 guys talking, and they're not talking to you, then you can ignore it and walk away. And like Rabbi said, you got to make sure you delete that stuff. Don't let that affect your opinion about the person they were talking about. But if they're talking to you, my personal conviction would be, not belief, but my personal conviction would be to interrupt them and say, hey, sorry, dude, we can't be talking about that, and I can't be a part of this conversation. And that's a hard thing to do, especially if it's somebody that you like as a friend, or that you respect, or even someone you love. So you're going to have to be the example, because if you don't nip it in the bud and uproot those weeds, man, they're going to keep growing into this really, really nasty.
Yeah, but they may not stop. People don't care. That's the thing. That's your problem. I can say what I want. But
But you still corrected it, though.
How many Jews have I heard say that? They'll say, "Oh, that's only for you. That's only your religion. It's not about me." I'm like, okay, we're in the same boat, whether you like it or not. That's the bottom line.
That's funny. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Go ahead, Rabbi.
Yeah. So, this idea of speaking against others, again, a big misnomer. It doesn't matter if it's true. Right, absolutely doesn't matter. A person's not allowed to repeat it unless there's a purpose. There has to be a strong purpose. The people say, "Well, I see you bash, Reform and Conservative. I seen you bash these other things," and yeah, but there's a purpose to it. Maybe I also transgress Lashon Hara because people say, "Well, what gives you the right to do that?" If you see something that's bad, and it doesn't work, and it causes people to go astray. Well, what gives you the right not to say anything? In other words, it's also a mitzvah not to stand by when someone's blood's being shed, right? So that you might take physically, if a person's in danger, you have to try and do something to, to stop that, but at the same time, if someone's drowning, spiritually, and they're being dragged away from from what they should be doing, a person shouldn't be warned. A person shouldn't be warned about that. Of course they should be warned about it. Especially if, the people that are causing them to go astray, that's Torah prohibition. Causing people to go against, go against God and what he wants. It doesn't matter, if the person's Jewish or not. It could be a non-Jew. It could be certainly a wayward Jew. So obviously there's no obligation to listen, but people get sucked in. And when they get sucked in, people have to know that, that there's a reality. There's another reality. The question is, though, in that case, if they're just going to blaspheme even more, the question is, do you give rebuke to somebody when they're not going to listen and they're going to hate more?
Right.
Anyway, so that's that you have to be careful of. A lot of times I'm in certain situations where, someone will say something and it doesn't matter what I'm going to say. I can change the subject. No, I want to speak about this. I do something else. That's bad and this is, whatever it is. So you're in a no-win, and sometimes you're in a no-win situation.
I'll tell you from my personal experience in situations where that has applied, and I have spoken up. Granted, the person who was doing the Lashon Hara about the other people to me are still doing it today. They don't do it around me anymore. They know that that's not a road that they're willing to, that they can travel down my street. So in worst case scenario, it'll keep me from having to be put in a situation in the future from that same person, even if they don't change in general.
So that's good. I'm not sure most people would do that. They'll just continue doing whatever they're doing. They'll say, just don't listen. Oh, you can't listen to this.
Well, I carry a gun, so I mean, they don't have much.
That's also good. Okay, that'll work.
I'm just kidding.
9 times out of 10, you win. Okay,
that's funny. I'm just kidding.
That I definitely hear, but it's, it's a big catch-22.
Right.
Because someone here points out, what about people say against Jewish blood libels, and they use Jewish blood, they use Christian blood to make matzahs and
right.
And other things. Do I have an obligation to speak up? You have to think, what are these people, what's going to come out of it? And you could get 1 billion people to comment on it, which is bad because then there's all this stuff that goes through it. And even if you're defending the Torah, and I'm not saying you don't have a right to do it, you got to think about what the repercussions, may or may not be. And you say, well, if someone says something and goes against it, why is that my problem? Right? So,
right.
Again, God does not need to be defended. There are people out there that say, I have a Torah obligation to defend God. No, you don't. And you're going to make things worse because you're probably going to say something you don't know about. You're going to probably tick somebody off, as well. And then you're going to get into this whole heated debate. And what happens? What's going to happen? You're going to have a whole chain, a whole daisy chain of people making comments. And your mother is this, and your mother is that. Like, what's that going to, what's that going to accomplish? Again, a person has to have the, eyes in the back of their head also, to know what potentially may come out of it. And, so is it better, you have these, you have these comments like, what one topic that, I think we'll get into in the future, I was going back and forth with somebody privately about fallen angels. If you're gonna go back and forth, don't do it in public.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree.
Do it in public is 10 times worse because there are misconceptions. People aren't clear. And if they say, well, that's what I meant, but you didn't say it, you left yourself open, right? So these are real serious issues. So, I was going back and forth with someone, and, at the end of the day, we're not holding on the same page by any stretch.
Right.
He didn't convince me. I didn't convince him. What am I going to do, put that out in public and trash them? I could.
Right.
It'd be very easy. It'd be very easy to do it. I'd be totally justified. But at the end of the day, I came up with, a couple lines, which guy didn't buy either, which was, what, you want to believe in that, that's fine. So, we call that idolatry. And if it's idolatry, you can't do it. And not only that, but how many of these people are going to be left in the next generation? So, I was coming like on a consistent basis. What does it look like in the next generation? Can you pass it down? It's like, well, that's not really my problem. It's, I really believe in this philosophy, and more rabbis in Judaism should believe in it, and I get all these proofs, which he doesn't. But at the end of the day, person said, well, what do I care if it's passed down? Mm-hmm. I'm like, do you ever hear the story of what a mule is? A mule's a hybrid. Anyone doesn't know genetics there. Right. Mule's a hybrid between a donkey and a horse. One serious problem with the mule. It's sterile. Right?
Interesting.
He can't reproduce. So you want to be some part of something that can't reproduce?
Right.
You want to tell me we should believe in it and the rabbi should give up everything that we've believed in for 3,000 years? And that's going to continue the Jewish people? I don't think so.
Here's one thing that I think that helped me a little bit on making the decision to be more careful. I mean, even outside of Torah, if a person treated their words like every word you said was money, whether it's a nickel, dime, quarter, whatever, then you're going to be a lot more careful on where you spend that money, right? And so if you're in a Lashon Hara situation and you think of your words as money and you think, well, if you don't have money to blow like me, we got to save every penny. So if I'm thinking, okay, I got $5, I can stick it in the coffee can at home, or I can go buy, a big gulp and a Snickers bar with it, which is a smarter thing to do, especially if I'm not even hungry. I mean, and you can use all the different examples, but the whole point of it is, if you look at how valuable your words are and treat them like they are money, and you really think about that, every time you open your mouth, just think, I'm fixing to spend spiritual money right now. Do I want to waste it on Lashon Hara, or do I want to even waste it in supporting someone else who's doing it? Or I can use it to invest, just like a bank, use that money to invest to say the right thing and get your compound interest back. So I know it may sound a little weak to some people, but for me it was a good trigger because we were very poor growing up.
I heard a great rabbi once say, I get all these questions about kashrus, about what you're allowed to eat, not allowed to eat, what goes in your mouth. He said, halavai, I should get questions what I should be allowed to speak.
Mm-hmm.
If you're so worried about what goes in your mouth, shouldn't you be even more worried what comes out?
Yeah, right.
And the problem is that, people speak, they don't even realize what they say half the time. And, what I'll call, they have diarrhea of the mouth. I had a comment. I was speaking to somebody, and someone made a comment, a real nasty, disgusting comment. I called them on it. They said, I never said that. I'm like, what do you mean you never said it? I'm like, I'm not hallucinating. I'm not, I'm not senile. I definitely heard that on the other end. It's like, and they denied it. They denied they ever said it. I never said that. I'm like, you telling me I'm hard of hearing? I mean, that could be, but I'm hard of a lot of things. But
like, you telling me I wasn't present? I wasn't there when I said it?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I was like, I turned myself into, who knows what. It was maybe my reincarnated soul, like, went out of my body and I wasn't there. I was somewhere else. Could be. But, people are not careful. Certainly in social media, person types something, sends an email and say, oh, I really shouldn't have said that, and they already sent it.
Right.
And that happens a lot.
Right.
People say, oh, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have sent it like that. When you're speaking to someone, the problem is that we give knee-jerk reaction. Someone says something, we're in a certain state of mind, we're rushed, we're this, we're that. All of a sudden you say, what'd you just say? Like, did you really just say this? And like all of a sudden, like, tension flares.
Right.
But people say, what are you so excited about? Don't get your piles up in an uproar. Like, why are you so sensitive? And so the answer is, why? Because Torah says I should be sensitive. And I should be a lot more sensitive. But the fact that people don't care, they just say what they say. I'm not saying you have to call someone on, on everything they say. But,
Sure.
You have to pick, what you're going to say, what you're not going to say. And a lot of times, as we said before, this will probably be the mantra, a lot of times, at the end of the day, it's better not to say anything.
Right.
And in social media, it gets magnified. It gets magnified by the billions.
Let me give you an
example. When a person says something, and let's say then someone comments and 3 people comment and some person gets offended or whatever the case, you have no idea what that comment does and will do. Multiply that by infinity. Keep in mind that by Lashon Hara there are 30 transgressions, total Torah prohibition.
Wow. Unbelievable.
I'll tell you one other scarier fact. The Chaim, who wrote this book on Shmiras HaLashon about guarding your tongue. So one of his students was my Rebbe, Rav Moshe Schneider, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha. He had a yeshiva in London during the war, before actually World War II, and he was a student of the Chofetz Chaim, and he asked the Chofetz Chaim, how come you didn't write in Shmiras HaLashon in your book? Why didn't you write that a person who speaks Lashon Hara has no portion of the world to come? So it is brought down. He's brought down the Medrash. It's brought down in the Jerusalem Talmud, right? So he said, how come you didn't bring that out in the book? So he said, people have enough difficulty, speaking badly against others and working on that. If I would have put that in there, people would just give up.
Yeah.
People would just totally give up. But it doesn't mean it's not severe. I mean, the temple's still not rebuilt. Right? We don't have a temple in Jerusalem. People do it all the time. it's been the mitzvah of this generation for people to be aware, of how they speak. And there are many, many gatherings where, rabbis get up and speak about this topic. There are plenty of other topics as well, but in the last generation, over the last 25 years, that has been the topic. The main topic where there's, disagreement between rabbis, between institutions, and one person saying something, against someone else, and how it all works. Someone actually texted me before, when we talk about people speaking badly against one another, that's certainly forbidden. What about organizations?
Oh yeah,
Right?
you see signs of people going out striking against a company, and it's like I saw one in Austin just last month, and they said something about they're all going on strike against this company for some weird thing. And it's like the bad thing about that is that no one knows whether that's even true or not, except for the people involved. And even if it is, like you said, we've got the laws of Lashon Hara. Even if it is true, you can't just go broadcasting that out to people.
It depends. It depends what it is. It depends how severe it is, and it depends what the purpose is.
Right.
In general, a person certainly has to be careful. But again, if you take certain organizations, we'll mention one that just happened last week. Look what happened. Look what happened in the UN. And Israel's got more, which I'm not going to get too political. Israel gets more condemnations in the UN than any other country combined.
Right.
Any other rogue country. And Israel's like 1/1000th of the world's population.
Yeah.
Right?
1/1000th of the evil.
The UN is not Israel friendly by by any stretch. The organization's a joke in a lot of ways.
Right.
But so they came out with this thing last week, which absolutely makes no sense on so many different levels. For what they did. Nonetheless, you'll see people, on social media and, speaking about how bad it is and, et cetera. These people are, against us. There's no question, right? There's absolutely no question. Anyone, disagrees with that, go look at all these UN resolutions. This is, this is not something I'm making up and not because I'm a fanatic or whatever. This is proven fact. Now, even that being true, right? So a person can't just say, well, look at the UN and look what they do and this and that. Yeah. You're allowed to speak against it. You have to have a purpose in what you're doing. You can't just trash them for no reason and say, yeah, but everybody knows about it. And yeah, that's clear and doesn't matter. Right? People look aside and say, I have a right to say that because of, whatever. But it has to have some, some level of purpose. When it gets into politics,
sure.
Everything goes out the window. When it gets into like, some other organizations, and what's done, person has, certainly has to be careful. If it's something egregious, you don't have to stand by if, for instance, which we already spoke about, homosexuality. So, you see Jewish organizations giving hundreds and thousands and millions of dollars, right, to abhorrent behavior according to the Torah.
Right.
I have to sit back and say, not say anything.
Yeah,
so
that's
if
true.
Speaking about education, and something like that and what that goes to. So, yeah, that's going to come up. That's absolutely going to come up. And again, we're not interested in being politically correct. The question is the Torah true or it's not? Is it anti this or it's not? And I don't care what people's opinions are. They could be, to the, if I would have been an Orthodox Jew, I grew up in Massachusetts, so I'd be a left-wing, pinko commie and, growing up there. But because I believe in the Torah, so yeah, the Torah may cloud my eyes. The rabbis may cloud our eyes. But that's what we have. So if you believe in it, and, I'm not against,
right.
We're not against the person themselves. It's against what the act is. But my rabbi said, someone asked him, if there's a parade, and they're going by this yeshiva, what should you do? So he said you shouldn't be holding, sending out Tootsie Rolls, giving them lollipops, sending out ice cream. You should be there protesting. It doesn't mean you throw things. Doesn't mean you say, you should, say Tehillim, say Psalms, do something, right? But you can't just say, I'm just going to sit here and do nothing because if you're in the palace of the king, it's 10 times worse. But yeah, that's what, there are specific things that the Torah says we have to understand, certainly have to understand what it is. But, if someone says, well, is this forbidden? Yeah, it is. Well, that's racist. Okay, it's racist. And the Torah's anti-pig. Yes, it is. And we're and they're anti-non-Jews. Well, that's not necessarily true. We have to be separate from non-Jews, right? We have to be a light into the nations. We have the laws of kashrus. We have the laws of not intermarrying, not to be like everybody else. That's what a chosen nation is. We're not like everybody else, and that's clear.
It's like saying to the loaf of bread, you're a water hater. No, I just dissolve in water. I can't be around it. I don't hate water. I just can't be around it. Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit here.
Yeah.
This is something I've been thinking about, and I think it's something that may be a pretty valuable part of tonight's show. Because a lot of us because we've seen so much Lashon Hara on social media, we kind of see the mild forms of it and the more extreme forms of it. But one thing I'm not
sure there are mild forms. Extreme. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, gotcha. One thing I want to kind of discuss is Lashon Hara regarding intimate family members, like at home. For example, let's just say, like, I have two younger children, right? David and Sarah. David's 11, Sarah's 13. Let's just say I came home from work tomorrow and, David did something that really ticked me off, and I walk inside the house and Sarah's like, "What's wrong, Daddy? You're in a bad mess." David, he just went and did this whole thing again. I mean, isn't that Lashon Hara also? I mean, to speak evil even of your child, and not evil, even if it was the true thing, to another child that could actually spin their attitude towards their sibling because of that event, or vice versa, the mother, talking bad, saying something negative in front of your children about your spouse, or vice versa. There's so many different avenues there that I think that if that Lashon Hara was avoided in the home, there would be a lot more peace within the family unit.
Right. If you look at what the Chaim did when he set up his book, he didn't say it's forbidden to talk. People make the mistake, I can't say anything. That's not true. He told you what you're allowed, to speak about. Certainly in a family dynamics, yeah. If a parent comes home, something's broken or whatever, and they say, all right, who did this? Now, if someone knows who did it, so you say, well, am I allowed to say anything? Right? So better to say, okay, did you do it?
Right.
Did you do it? A person certainly has to be careful, especially, what they give over, to their kids, how spouses, speak to each other. And again, kids pick up a lot of things, and they see a lot of things, and, for better or for worse, the parents are the role models. So how they speak, how they interact, they also see contradictions, and this is another issue because of what we see and what people do. They can walk the walk and talk the talk. Doesn't mean what they're doing is right. Right? That's a whole nother, that's a whole nother beast of how people get caught up and see the contradictions. Say, well, this person does this. They're supposed to be someone so important. So how is that permissible? Well, it's not. So they're living a lie. Well, they're not necessarily living a lie, right? They're doing, they have an evil inclination like anybody else. So, they also make mistakes. But, how many times have I heard that people say, look what these people, look what this Orthodox person did, look what this rabbi did, look what he said, and look how it was done. Etc. So, it doesn't matter what people do. I have to live my own life. I am going to get judged. Everybody's going to get judged based on what they do, not based on what other people, do or say.
Okay.
And that's, for some people, that's a problem because they see contradictions, and there are. There definitely, there definitely are. You have to take it in context, but people can make excuses, and say, oh, this person did this and this person did that, so. I can use an excuse and say I don't have to do anything. I'll give an example. I knew somebody that, many years ago said, well, when I was in Cheder, I went to a Jewish school when I was a kid, and, the rabbi hit me with a ruler. And if that's what Judaism is, I don't want to have any part of it. So I said, maybe that's not what Judaism is. Maybe, he had a bad day or whatever, chalk it up to bad education. So the person was like a parrot. He kept saying the same thing. That's what Judaism is, and I don't have any part of it. I said, maybe you had maybe you had a bad day, whatever the case is. The person kept saying the same thing.
Right.
So finally I said, if you're in fourth grade, you have a bad teacher. Now, teachers aren't perfect, no question. People have good teachers, bad teachers, good experiences, bad experiences. Person has a bad experience, they say, you know what? I've had it. This is a bad teacher. Everyone will agree this is a bad teacher. Maybe yes, maybe no. And they say, that's it. I'm out of education. I'm going to go out and get a job, right? Fourth grade. Good luck. But why don't people say that? Why don't you chalk it up to, to experience? So people say, no, I don't have to chalk it up to experience, and only Jews, will do this because they have much more at stake. And that is, if I don't come up with a good excuse, then why am I not obligated to keep what the Torah tells me? So the person's going to say, that's what Judaism is, but it's not. That's not really what it is in its ideal form. But if that's what Judaism is, okay, you're talking to a brick. So why is he saying that? Because if he doesn't say it, and you give him an answer, and then he has to, keep what the Torah says, and he doesn't want to do it, so he's got a very convenient excuse. So people say the same thing. Oh, I saw this person speak against someone else, and I saw this person steal. I've heard this also. Oh, these Orthodox Jews, they do this, that. The other thing, I don't do that, but I don't have to keep it. Look, they have to keep it. I don't have to keep it. That's also an excuse, and it's also a crock. Because that just gives them the ability to say, I can do what I want. Because,
right.
Oh, religion doesn't make you better. Yeah, it should. And if it doesn't, and we're out in the limelight, so to speak, we're out in public, and you make a desecration of God's name, that's exactly what happens.
Okay, so next question is, what are the ramifications for? I know, in according to Torah, back in the day, someone who spoke Lashon Hara, one of the penalties, the physical, tangible penalties, was Lashon Hara. And I heard a beautiful explanation on why leprosy or tsaros was given. And in my mind, I was thinking, wow, that's a pretty crude punishment. But if you look at what giving that person leprosy accomplished, it actually was a beautiful thing, because it's like if the rule for the leprous person is to be pushed outside the camp to where they're not in the multitude of everybody, because they might catch leprosy, if you want to call it that, right? Well, then that was a tool that God used, a physical plague for them, that they would have to push this person away. And in the midst of pushing that person away, they also pushed away this evil speech. They're not subject to all the evil speech anymore, because by doing that, it actually ejected Lashon Hara out of the camp as well until the proper time was met. So, and today, I mean, I've heard the stories say that tsaros is not today. It's not what's happening today now. That was like back in biblical times only. I don't understand that. I don't understand why. And also, I can tell you from my personal experience, I have met 2 or 3 people who have something like that. Some people, it may be an extreme case of psoriasis or something, or whatever you call that, little skin flaky stuff. And I know at least 2 people, maybe 3, that do talk bad about people all the time, and they've got this stuff like all over them. And in my mind, that was my first thought. But if that's not applicable today, then what are the ramifications?
So I would call that, being thrown out of the camp is, call that spiritual cooties, right? In other words, right. That, it's a physical thing that you do, but, people define tsaras, of what they call leprosy, but it's a physical manifestation of a spiritual disease, right? Spiritual disease is speaking badly against others. One thing for sure, even if a person has a lot of psoriasis or whatever the case is, we can't say that that's because of speaking badly against others. You see, the Torah says it, but we don't have it. Right. We don't live in that type of world, because if we did, every time someone spoke badly against someone, they start breaking out and etc. So we wouldn't have free will. Right, that would take free will away. So first thing is, we don't know. We don't know why these things happen.
Can I interject something? You just gave me a really interesting thought. That's a really good point. I never thought of it. Maybe that's the reason why it's no longer applicable, because it's like it doesn't really give you the choice to monitor it. Now, here's the second thought that came with that. The laws of Torah were specifically for the Jewish people. So, like, for example, the people I know weren't even Jewish. And at the time, I didn't care to be. And of course, I'm still not, but I mean, I didn't care to be or anything. So, really, that wouldn't have applied in that situation anyway. And someone asked Timothy, said, hold on, who was it? Somebody said, is it possible that some indications, there it is, Timothy Wilson, does Judaism still view skin blemishes as a possible indicator for modern day Lashon Hara? So all that tied together, in general, the laws of Torah are for the Jew, even the bad laws, even the disciplinary laws. Those are specifically for Jewish people. So if you find someone in America or some other country who's violating Torah and they don't seem to be getting punished for it, it's because they're not under the Torah laws in that regard. Those Torah laws, pros and cons, are specifically for the Jews. Or when I say Jewish people correct me on that all the time. You can't say Jews. They were all Hebrews. They were all at Mount Sinai. Okay, Jewish people is a generic term that covers. Okay, Rabbi, in fact, do that real fast. Take just a minute and explain what it means when you say the Jews. Because when you say the Jews, people say, wait a minute, Ephraimites were at Mount Sinai too. Why aren't they included in this Jewish thing? So explain that.
When we talk about the Jewish people, we're talking about the Jewish people who got the Torah. That it was passed down to Mount Sinai, which is passed down to us 3,000 years later, right? From oral tradition. Gotta go back and rewind how all this oral tradition works, right? But when we talk about the Jews, we're talking about the Jews who accepted the Torah. We're not talking about the black Hebrews. They didn't accept the Torah. They didn't accept all of it, right? We're talking about the Jews who accepted the entire Torah. It doesn't matter if they go astray or not. I mean, it's bad, there's no question. But we're talking about the Jews who received the Torah.
So the Levites and Judah and Benjamin, they're all
part of the Jewish
They
people.
were all together,
all
right? And so the Levites were entrusted with the Shem's word. All the northern kingdoms, they went north, and they had pretty much all bad kings up there. I'm just kind of summarizing just so I can kind of wrap my head around it. Southern kingdom, they had good kings, bad kings, whatever. But in general, they kept Torah. So all the ones who abandoned Torah, those were the other tribes. Judah was the one.
Jews, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I said the word Jew is a generic term. It's not just the tribe of Judah. Jew literally encompasses a generic term that encompasses anybody who embraces Torah.
Right.
That's the generic term.
Not embraces it. The Torah was given to.
Okay.
They can choose. They can choose not to embrace it. I mean,
but they're still
90% of world Jewry doesn't embrace Torah.
Okay, so
they're going to be lost by the wayside. But
gotcha.
Talking about that God gave the Torah and the Jewish people accepted it for all generations.
Okay, gotcha. So coming back full circle now, that Torah law, those 613 commandments and all throughout the oral Torah and stuff, that was specifically for the Jewish people. So, your American friend who, is sleeping around with every woman in town and not catching cooties or whatever the case may be, and he seems to be blessed, well, you know what? He's in that chance realm. He's the neighbor's kid. He's not God's kid. So, and those laws are for God's kids. That's the basic.
But there are things that apply to non.
Oh yeah, certainly. But I'm just saying that the laws, the Jewish laws that you follow, Rabbi, that I can't follow right now, that's specifically for you and for the Jewish people. And once I convert and I become a Jew, then I will be in that department too. But until then, I'm still on the other end as far as their accountability goes.
Right. I mean, there's the thing that I think people make a lot of mistake with also is, we want to understand things now. We want everything fast. Give me an explanation. Make it make sense in all this. And there are a lot of things that don't make sense.
Right.
You could see people that have the skin disease and let's say they never spoke Lashon Hara. It's hard to imagine, but they could have any number of things, and there are so many other things going on, in the world. That occurs to them for whatever reason. We can't pinpoint, and say, oh, that's the reason, or, whatever. If someone acts in a certain way, right, and they act in a certain way where the repercussions could be they could get diseases, well, it's hard to say there's not a connection.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I agree.
That's like, if I do this, yeah, you could blow up. Well, that's pretty much a direct connection. Well, God could stop it, he could, but that's pretty much direct. Most things are totally not direct.
Right.
And we can't fathom why. But in the realm of Lashon Hara, for instance, even in times where it's permissible, it's still not good for your soul unless you absolutely have to do it, because then you get used to actually doing it. So back to back to the question, like what's the punishment? We don't know what what goes on today. We don't have tsaras today. We don't have this, even people want to say it's leprosy or whatever the case is. We don't have it, right? So you say, well, what's the punishment? The punishment is it's bad for your soul. And when you hang around people that speak badly, you get caught up in it, even in cases where it's permissible.
You know what I have to
Right?
say?
Yeah.
And again, this is from experiences that I've seen. Baruch Hashem, not with me because I'm an angel and I don't talk bad about people. But I've actually witnessed this over a period of years. A physical, a tangible punishment that you will get from this, and you mark my word on this. You talk bad about somebody and you let that slide, and you talk bad about somebody else and you let that slide, you will become a bitter old person that no one wants to be around. That I promise you.
Yeah, that's true, because people look in the negative. Certainly people look in the negative, and it's very easy because, of course, you don't want to change. You don't want to become better.
Right,
you want to
right.
you want to nitpick and find everything wrong with everybody else. So that's definitely true, and there are a lot of bitter, cynical people that are out there. Certainly when it comes to religion and people
sure.
being duped and people, I've seen stories and other things of what people have gone through, and verbal abuse and mental abuse and different things. These are definitely real things. So then someone says, oh, now I've seen the truth and this is totally wrong and it's bogus and and everything else. At the same time, it definitely has such a strong effect. It's very hard for them to get out of that mentality.
Okay.
You shouldn't judge, Judaism by what Jews do.
Right.
Same thing.
Okay, here's another $1 million question for you. Wait, isn't there only supposed to be $1 million question? Okay, so this is the $2 million question. Is that a Noahide law to avoid Lashon Hara?
So that's a good question. So I asked my Rebbe about this a while ago, and he basically said that a Noahide has an obligation to keep whatever makes logical sense. So whatever in the Torah makes logical sense, I mean, they can keep other things even if it doesn't make logical sense, and certainly get merit for it. So I said, so I can teach, I should be able to teach about the laws of Lashon Hara. And he said, no. I said, why not? I said, doesn't it make logical sense?
In other words, the things that become aware to them on their own, not with somebody teaching them.
No, that could be, but I'm saying that something like this, if you would ask the vast majority of people, he didn't give me an answer, right? He said, no, you're not allowed to do it. It's not logical. So I said, how can it not be logical? If you were to ask, most people, right? You can take a poll and ask, if I know something is true, am I allowed to repeat it to someone else? 100% of the people will say absolutely no problem.
Right. So that would be
There's
logical.
no issue with it.
Right. So therefore, then they're off the hook. Technically.
They're off the hook. The question is, though, that even if it doesn't apply, the thing that we always have to ask is it better for me? Does it make me a better person? Does it help me serve God better?
See,
if the answer is no,
right, then
you shouldn't be saying it.
Well, see,
even if they're not obligated in it.
This is another point where remember the bread and water thing. The bread doesn't hate the water; it just can't be submerged in it, right? This is another very, very crystal clear proof that I can see, a proof for me anyway, that why the Jews have to remain separated. Because if it's completely illegal for a Jew to speak Lashon Hara, but it's not completely illegal for a non-Jew to do it, then that's going to have a major chaos and destructive when you put these two together.
Also, but we don't live in a cave, right?
Yeah,
Everybody
right.
lives amongst non-Jews.
You have to be around compatibility.
Other things. That would be in an ideal sense. But yeah, we have plenty of laws that we have to stay away from. That's Lashon Hara in general is just it's such a negative thing. What it does to a person, it makes them bitter, whatever, but it makes them think that they're superior to others because I can knock somebody down by making myself look, better. And where's the better example than that, than seeing what goes on in social media? And I've seen it time and again, where people say things they don't need to be said. And there can be rabbis that say things that shouldn't be said. Certainly not calling people out if they disagree with you. That's like off the charts, totally off the charts. I mean, it's like, it's my way or the highway. And if you don't believe in what I believe in, I'm going to shred you. It gives you a right to do that.
Right.
That is not a Jewish concept.
Right, gotcha.
Calling people names, saying things, that's just off the charts. Right. And what do you gain by doing that? Zero. You make enemies. You certainly lose credibility. Because, again, another hot topic may be what makes someone a rabbi, right?
Right.
Just because they have certain credentials. Are they legit or not? So the Talmud says, you want to know if someone's legit, can you learn from somebody if they are similar to you in your eyes as an angel? So
right.
That being said, when you get someone with a big mouth and goes off shooting off their mouth, saying, oh, you're this and you're that and you're the other thing, that person's an angel? No, it's desecration of God's name.
Gotcha.
You don't got a right to say whatever you think and put people down because they disagree with your with your opinion. Who gives you a right to do that? People do it. I'm not saying not.
Right.
You gotta be extremely sensitive. It doesn't matter what people say. You have to know how to defend and do it privately.
Right.
The fact that you do it in public and
privately is very key. Yeah.
I mean that is not a Torah concept. Oh, a person's name. He's a rabbi. Yeah. That makes him a rabbi? Makes him a chump in my eyes. All
right. Okay. Shout out to Brian Rahuba. I hope I said your name correctly. He's wanting to know about, the question that really won't apply for tonight, but I just noticed he said, I'm a Gentile, but not a practicing Gentile. In other words, he's probably just now coming into the whole biblical studies. But he says, but I do know that my salvation comes from the Jews. And so, anyway, shalom to you, Brian. It's good to see you. Michelle, hello. By the way, thank you all for all the birthday wishes. I saw those in the beginning. Thank you. Y'all are very sweet. Timothy Wilson, is there a specific law under the Noahide? This is actually quite possible. That's why we ask you, Rabbi, because you're the crazy one to answer. Is there a specific law under the Noahide categories? Like, does it fall under stealing, like stealing a reputation? But technically, if you're stealing a reputation, that would be murder, not stealing. So that's what the Lashon Hara would fall. So, and then Spiritual Talmud says, I've heard people liken Lashon Hara to murder of one's reputation, like we just said. And through that person themselves, what do you think, Rabbi Coffman?
There's the thing about, it's the first thing first about speaking, against others, an onus devarim. Onus devarim is like, you call someone a nickname that's not so, it's not so flattering. You call him Shorty, doesn't like it. You call him, I don't know, Bigfoot, I don't know, whatever it is that, that certainly could be offensive. That should apply to a non-Jew. I mean,
right.
People may say again, let's make clear. People may say, oh, you're too sensitive, right? I've heard that many times. Oh, you're too sensitive. No, you're making fun of something you don't know anything about, or whatever the case is. You're making fun. Who gives you a right to make fun? Why you're making fun? Because you want to make yourself look bad. You want to say, oh, this is stupid. I don't have to keep it, and you're a fanatic. Who gives you a right to say that for a non-Jew? Why should that be any better?
Right.
Right. Why should they be allowed to say things against, against other people? Even, in the second question about murder. Even if the third person, let's say it doesn't affect them. Let's say, this person will never hear about it. It doesn't matter. What if it does? Let's say in theory, word gets out. I mean, this has certainly happened, a number of times. Could totally ruin someone's business.
Right.
Right? They're not gonna, they'll boycott. Look what this person's done. Look what he said. I mean, even if what they said is, whatever it is, it gives someone the right to a character assassination. Okay,
confession time. This is something that I've recently experienced myself. Not that I was the victim, but I was the one with the slip of the tongue, and I caught myself after it was too late. This has happened a couple times. The first time it was like way too late when I realized it, and the second time I was like I was in the middle of it, and then this last time I was like I caught it in the beginning. I didn't say anything. So here I am, a contractor, and because I'm so like meticulous on things, unless it was my work, it was not good. Because I mean, I literally, when I go to a restaurant, I can't sit in a restaurant without looking at how everything was constructed and to see what kind of detail they paid. But when I'm with the customer, and I'm saying this for all the benefit of y'all, because if you're contractors out there, if you're working with somebody else, if you work at Long John Silver's, I don't care where you work at. If you're a nurse, it doesn't matter. I can't believe she did that. That's not the right way of doing things. We don't do things that way around here, right? And I've done this. I was like, I cannot believe the poor quality of this work. I don't know who did this job last. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh crap, this guy is probably the one who hired him, and they're probably friends. And here I am bad-mouthing this guy. And so, you've got to really be careful with every time you breathe. You just got to think, who's going to be affected by my bad breath? So anyway, and it happened, man. And it's like, I've caught it now, and I don't think it'll ever happen again. And if it starts to slip, man, I'll have to buckle down and just zip it.
You've seen that in real time. Imagine what happens, in social media. Multiply that by infinity.
Right.
And, a person could say something, they didn't have intention to offend anybody, or they left it open. They left themselves open, and then people went berserk. That certainly can, that certainly can happen as well. But yeah, when it comes to things like that, you have to be so careful and, think like a billion times before, you want to say something or, you want to do something, because the ramifications we might not even fathom, or realize what possibly could be said. I think I mentioned last week, even though we got cut off, that I made a comment.
That was your fault. You blew up my system the first time you were on. You blew the last 20 minutes of the last one. Don't blame me.
Okay, you can blame me. But
I'm just kidding. That was not your fault. I'm just kidding.
More than 20 years ago, 25 years ago, this subject sometimes, whenever it comes up every so often, I made a comment, and I said, I feel like this. I didn't say I am this.
Right.
I said I feel like this. And they said, oh, you said this. I said, no, I didn't say that.
Right.
I said I feel like that. Anyway, conversation goes around in circles. Every once in a blue moon, that subject sometimes, comes up. But that's something that was said more than 25 years ago. And I'll never win that argument, ever.
And you won't, especially now, because the further that time clock passes, the more the more right the other person becomes.
and again, I didn't say the statement. I said I feel like this, and they heard what they wanted to hear, and that's a no-win situation. So that wasn't an innocuous statement.
I'm going to give you another.
It definitely was not an innocuous statement. You can imagine it was it could have been one of my fanatical statements. It wasn't it wasn't an innocuous statement, let's just say that. But still, even so, it caused bad blood because they took it a different way, even if that's not what I meant, and I'll never live it down. So
right, here's another spin. Here's another spin for you on something. Why? Okay.
Certainly, it's certainly like that. So these things totally affect us in a negative way. And you mentioned 100%. When we focus on the negative of what someone does, I'm not saying you have to be best friends with that person wronged, or they said things, or whatever. But if you think about it too much and you harp on it and you just blast whatever you can blast, that's certainly not healthy either. So things have to be taken in. Things have to be taken in stride. And the rule of thumb in general in social media is, if you have a question what someone said, or maybe you found it offensive, or maybe it was offensive, contact them privately. Do not make a whole daisy chain so every Tom, Dick, and Harry can say whatever they want based on whatever criteria they may think, which can certainly be against Torah. Because if you don't, then you're going to see the end result. And social media can be a good thing. I think it's mostly a bad thing, but it can be certainly a good thing if it's used properly.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. So we had your Skype kind of went frozen there for a minute, and we're back on again. Let's see. Somebody just called in, but then they hung up again. Are they still on? No, they called, but then they're gone again. I don't think they left a message either. Okay, we're good. Okay, I was going to say something, and I can't remember what it was now. It's okay. If I remember, I'll have to interrupt you because it was pretty important. I can't remember the deal. So,
Because I'm just saying that, and by by social media, that anyone's gonna beef with somebody, contact them privately. No one has to see it. And you don't want.
That's what
you
it
certainly
was.
don't want any Tom, Dick, and Harry, commenting on it. Yeah, you remember now?
I do remember now. Okay,
I'm
so
back.
okay, so here's the deal. I saw a video that someone posted. A friend of mine actually, who was a Christian, he said this is from like 20 years ago. He said he goes William. He goes, dude, you're famous. He goes and he posted this link, right? And it was actually a link that Michael Brown had posted to debunk something Rabbi Tovia Singer had said, right? And so I went in there to watch the video. Of course, I know why my friend posted that. It wasn't because he was being nice. He was being a jerk. But but anyway, so I went to go watch the video anyway because I wanted to see what Michael Brown would have to say about something Rabbi Singer said. And it seemed like the first 7 minutes of the video, he did nothing but say things to discredit Rabbi Singer before he ever even talked about why he was doing the video to begin with. And I'm thinking, that's like shooting below the belt to begin with. It's just like the video that they had, 25 years ago, right? Yeah, the debate was only 45 minutes long. Well, if you go watch the video online, it's 2.5 hours long, 2 hours and 15 minutes. Why is that? Because they showed the video first, and then they spent the next hour and 15 minutes afterwards, having a discussion between Sid Roth and Michael Brown on how Tovia was wrong, which also was a violation of their agreement, by the way, which they've clearly violated. But also in the next 5 to 10 minutes of the video, he began saying stuff to try to debunk what Rabbi was saying, but he wasn't even bringing true points. He was mixing up things that weren't even true. So, but the reason why I brought that up was because the very first part of the video, he did nothing but try to say negative things about him to try to discredit him. So, in our day-to-day relations with other people, even whether it's at work or whatever, if somebody's talking to you about someone else, man, you've got to you got to get out of it. You've got to back your morals. I mean, you got to advance your morals and remove your motives. And hit this thing with a clean slate and with the pure heart. Because if you don't, you're going to get yourself in trouble.
Right. Keep in mind, what you just mentioned about 6 months ago, there was a whole controversy with Rabbi Yossi Mizrahi and what he said about the Holocaust, and someone, I mean, first of all, what he said, he admitted, wasn't totally accurate. Even so, somebody spliced a 2-hour video with a 2-minute soundbite for one reason, only to totally discredit him. Because if you heard what he said up until that point, and after, they totally tried to destroy him.
Wow.
And they'd come out. There's a whole unbelievable controversy, about that. So, so when you pick and choose, and you cut off what someone says, you don't understand the context, which I always say context is everything.
Yeah.
So what's the purpose of doing that? To discredit, to totally demolish him.
And that's it.
And that's what they did, or tried to do.
And the context is why the Christians are misled. I mean, context is developed by adding relative information, not removing it. And by taking
they're good at that. This guy I was texting last week, what about this source and that source? I knocked off every single source because that's not what it meant. Right? Totally clear what the source meant. You're taking it totally out of context and without any competence. Yeah, but that's what the rabbi says. And you got something better? You think that's what it means? It's not a Jewish concept. Move on. And
Wow. Yeah, I totally agree. Tanil, she said, just on comment on Sid Roth, that Sid Roth and Michael Brown completely set up that whole thing to kind of create a fail for. Of course, that's what they would do anyway. I mean, that's the whole point, is they're trying to. No one wants to debate something unless they think that they're going to make you look like a fool. But debates aren't meant to be won; they're just meant to share opinions.
Sure.
So
people do it all the time. Also, just they'll say things, do other things, and to try and discredit. Again, that's why when someone speaks or they write, you want to be crystal clear.
Right.
And if the person's not interested in a true argument, move on. It's it's a total waste of time. And they can misinterpret, turn your words into a pretzel. If anybody didn't say that,
that's a good one. I like that.
Like the person said, or I commented. I said, well, you don't believe in oral tradition. I said, you understand what the Torah says. I said, what about the laws of Shabbos? The Torah says you're not allowed to work on Shabbos. But at the same time, the Torah also says if you don't get it right, you get spiritually cut off and you get the death penalty. So he says, well, I do Shabbos, whatever Shabbos means, doing that work, whatever, I can go shop, I can do this. I said, but again, if you get it wrong, you're liable for the death penalty, being spiritually cut off. He's like, yeah, that doesn't really affect me so much. I'm like, why not? You're dead. You're dead and buried. If you get warned, there was a Sanhedrin. How can you dismiss that?
That's funny.
We call that cognitive dissonance. You're not listening. You're not there. Okay, so you want to speak to someone who's not there and is, not interested. Okay, so you can choose to do that, and it's a total waste of time. But
that's funny.
Like how do you look at the text and try and explain it in a way that makes sense? It doesn't matter. Like, what do you mean it doesn't matter? Getting to the truth doesn't matter. It's just my opinion. Yes, it is. Mine, myself, and I. All three of us. We agree on the same thing. Okay.
That's funny.
You want to be part of a fossil that's going to disappear, so I'm going to call you a fossil. It's like, no, you're going to be the fossil. I'm like, I don't think so. Look at what Jewish tradition is. Look what's going on. Look at all these things. You want to be a Karaite? Only about 50 of them left in the world.
Yeah, right.
You want
That's
to be,
true.
You want to bow down to fallen angels? How many people believe in that? You want to tell me thousands? How many are going to be left in the next generation? I'm like, Rabbi, that's not really the point. I'm like, that is exactly the point.
That's funny.
Doesn't matter what your philosophy is. If it doesn't work, I could care less.
All right, so we're going to make a part 2 out of this. Do we need to make a part 2? We can if you need to.
I mean, we can. That's not a problem. There's plenty what to speak about.
Well, I know we had about half the show was dealing with my questions and callers' questions, so I know that you already had some things that you wanted to talk about, and I'm not sure did we cover everything pretty much on your end?
And we covered some things. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we go ahead and we'll pick a different topic for next week, and then if we want to revisit this again and to cover another angle, we can do that as well. So, all right. Well, Rabbi, it's been great. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. It's been a fun night. Thank you again for all your love out there, guys. There's been over probably 200 or so happy birthday things through private messaging and through the Facebook posts and now through YouTube. Love you guys. Y'all are our family. Love you so much, and we look forward to seeing you on the other side. Rabbi, shalom, shalom. Take care, y'all.
Shalom to you. Shalom to everybody who listened.
All right. Take care. Bye.
חשוב